Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hammer Podcast. Today is November 28th, 2020, and I'm speaking with Mac. Mac went to the Agape Boys Ranch. I'm not sure what year. What year was that, Mac?
2017.
2017. Okay. And he's going to share his story with us today. And, of course, we have James Griffey. Thanks for being on.
Me? Oh, yes. Good to be here, man.
So we're going to go ahead and let Mac tell his story. Go ahead, Mac. The floor is yours.
Right on. So, first of all, thanks for having me so much.
You're welcome.
I've always wanted to share these stories and never really had a place besides just friends and stuff. So this is awesome. I really appreciate what you've been doing with these videos. So I grew up in a pretty Christian household, pretty conservative household, not to the level of Agape, of course, but grew up homeschooled when I was younger and stuff. And when I got into like my mid-teens, I was just looking to do like very normal teenage things. Like I just wanted like an Instagram account and like to hang out with friends on Saturdays. Like I wasn't even into quote unquote bad things at that point. But my parents kind of, with their worldview, saw a lot of like the rather normal stuff I was going after as bad. So they kind of gave me an ultimatum before I got into high school and said, yeah, you can either like continue to live by these rules or you can go to high school but we won't like give you any boundaries or any like help with anything. Like you just have a place to sleep and food on the table and that's it. And my third option was a boarding school. At that time, I had never heard of Agape. They didn't know, but they actually presented that option to me when I was younger and a lot more naive than I was when I did get sent to Agape. So at that point, I decided to go to high school and just kind of do away with a lot of the boundaries and rules my parents had and figure out like money and stuff like that on my own. So at that point, I went to high school in Wetaskiwin, Alberta, it's a small town about half an hour south of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Okay.
And it's a very, very dangerous city. I believe it's like third in crime in all of Canada per capita.
Wow.
And just a lot of drugs and just not a lot of healthy, like positive people in that town, period. So I kind of went into that high school as my parents gave me no rules and no boundaries, very naive and not knowing which people weren't the people to stay around and which people I need to get away from, of course. So, and largely due to my own decisions, within a year of high school, I was in some pretty serious stuff. Like, it started with just like smoking weed and partying and like pretty normal high school activities, right?
Yeah,
like,
typical stuff, yeah.
Sneaking out with girls and stuff like that. But by the time I got to 11th grade, in Canada, high school is just 3 grades, 10, 11, and 12. By the time I started 11th grade, I was doing coke and like some other harder stuff and just really not making good choices at all. So at that point, my parents kind of surprised me. And that's kind of like how I got to the point of getting sent to Agape. But the whole going to Agape is a whole interesting story in itself.
Did they have an escort service or how did they get you there? I'm curious.
So at that point, when I did get sent to Agape, I'd been dropped out of high school for about 2 months. And my father came to me one day and I can't remember the exact conversation, but it was along the lines of like, I feel like I haven't done enough for you in the last couple of years. I want to like take you, like, let's go on a vacation somewhere, right? So
Nice.
We get on a plane for Nashville, Tennessee. He has some sort of business meeting in Louisville, Kentucky a few days afterwards. So I'm thinking, we just fly to Nashville. We have hockey tickets for a game there, drive to Louisville, fly back. And we go to Nashville, spend a few days there, went to a hockey game, did a bunch of other stuff, and just started driving a couple of days later. And ended up on some weird back road in the middle of Missouri. Very confused because you would think it would be all big highways from a city like what was it? Nashville, Tennessee to Louisville, Kentucky. But we're driving down some back gravel roads, and I'm starting to get a little confused. So a couple of minutes before we show up at Agape, my dad's like, we're worried about you. We think this school like really might help you. We just want to go in and take a look. And I think that's something that a bunch of students have gotten from their parents. We're just going to take a look, right?
Yeah, right. We're just going to look at it, just see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, at least you weren't hearing any banjos while you were on the back roads, so you're good. You're good. Well, I guess that's what you were thinking, huh?
Yeah, looked like it.
Little did you know.
Oh my.
So you get there. Did they show you around, or did they just put you in there and your parents secretly just took off and left you there?
It wasn't quite like James. That was you, right? Where your parents just left you at the golf course.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
That's messed up. Like I can't even imagine that. I can't even imagine that. No, it was a little more tame with my dad. We just got out of the car, and Julio and I think it was like a captain and 2 red shirts were just standing there waiting for me. And they weren't it was early in the morning. I was tired. I wasn't like in the aggressive, like fighting back mood at all. So I just kind of went with whatever they were saying, just like rubbing stuff out of my eyes still. But yeah, they brought me into the meeting room and just kind of walked my dad through the program. I think a lot of that was like somewhat show because they had talked to my parents on the phone for weeks beforehand. It's like, I don't know how much decision making was actually made in that room to send me to the program. But yeah, we went into the big boardroom. I don't really remember the presentation that they gave my father. I kind of blacked out that memory a lot. I don't really remember the presentation that they gave per se.
You were there for it though, that presentation? It's not like you guys were in separate rooms?
Yeah, they did give us a presentation side by side, but it wasn't like I was being asked about the program at all. It was just like this is a program where like we have these rules, somewhat military based, but like kind of walk us through like how it's a combination of like real like somewhat military based, somewhat religious based, like independent fundamental Baptist.
Ugh.
Right.
3 dirty words. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, keep going. I was going to ask you something, but I lost the thought.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I lost the thought. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So I don't really remember the conversation between Julio and my dad and any of the captains or red shirts, but I do remember right at the end of the conversation, my dad, I can't remember again what he said, but gave an indication that he like didn't intend to go along with the program. And Julio said, what was it again? It was either like you should say sorry to your dad. I believe what he said was you should say sorry to your dad one last time, or you should hug your dad one last time. It was one of the two, but it was either you're not going to see your dad for a long time, so you should take this opportunity to. It was either apologize or hug. I honestly can't remember which one of the two. And I was just so angry in that moment that I couldn't see the big picture, obviously. Like, I know he had good intentions with what he did, but at that point I was just like, you're sending me somewhere? Are you kidding? Like, I'm adopted. So just in that moment, I was just like a blind rage. It's like you're going to adopt me, but when stuff starts going wrong, you're going to just send me away again. Like, it didn't compute with my brain, you know?
Did you ever?
It's like,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say it's like that's interesting, the adoption thing, because a lot of guys that went to Agape have been adopted. I was adopted as well, but it's like it seemed like they gave you free will to make your own decisions. It's like, okay, do whatever you're gonna do, and then it's like, but then like once you did do that and you made those bad decisions, they're just kind of like, like you said, they're doing what they felt was best, probably. At the same time, it's I wonder, dude. I wonder if it's like that's the thing for like when people adopt kids. They just think that if they're not what they think they were getting, they're hoping to get this perfect kid, and now they're like, okay, well, shoot, this is what I was expecting, so let's send them off to Agape.
Absolutely.
Did
Yeah.
your
And like,
did your parents, or did you ever find out how your parents found out about this place? Did they look on the internet? Did friends tell them? Did they go to a church where they had?
um, I don't think it was through word of mouth, just because there's so many degrees of separation between those circles and like the churches that my parents are in up here in Canada. I
Okay.
believe it was through the internet. Like I've heard they do like put a lot. Like I've actually like searched up like therapeutic boarding schools for boys, and Agape is on the front page on
Oh,
Google for one of those keywords. It's not just like in. You don't have to put in Missouri for Agape to come up by any means.
Wow.
Like,
spending a lot of money, James. Spending a lot of money on
Yeah.
them on those.
Yeah, the marketing, man.
Yep.
That's
and I remember talking to my mom not long after Agape, and she said that she had talked to a consultant beforehand whose name was I guess we can't put last names in this, but Scott.
First name only. Yeah.
Scott. This guy's name was Scott, I believe, and she thought this is not the doctor though. This isn't. We all know who Dumar is, I think, right? Yeah, he's been there for a long time. But this is different than that guy. This is yeah. My mom thought he was from a separate consultant agency, but he's a member of the church there.
at Agape.
Yeah, he's literally like front row of the church. Because I remember talking to mom. I was like, "Who did you talk to that convinced you about this place?" And she was like, "Oh, like this Christian consultant, Scott," and showed me his website. I was like, "That's a member of the church."
Huh.
Like,
That's interesting.
like
That's
Wow.
that is. I think I should text you guys like a little more info about that, because he is an interesting rabbit hole. He was running a consultant agency for like parents with troubled teens that was separate from Agape. And I think he was just recommending a lot of parents to Agape, but that could be completely wrong. There's no.
He could have been getting
Right.
a kickback from them too. You know,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I bet.
yeah,
I bet.
consultant's fee or something.
Yeah, a lot of those kind of like business like arrangements are like that, you know.
Sure. I mean, and if parents are having problems with their kids, it should be a pretty easy sell.
Yeah.
Come to Agape. We'll straighten your kid out with the love of Jesus Christ. You know.
Yeah. Dude. So you get there, right? You too angry to hug your dad, say goodbye to him, whatever, because of what's going on. Like what happened do you remember what happened right after your dad left?
I do remember the intake room and stuff. I was in like so much shock. I don't even think I really said a word. Like, I didn't really. A lot of people have had problems during their intakes, and I've been on intakes where I've seen people get messed up. But I had a pretty easy intake. I had a guy named Dan, who honestly is one of the most kind-hearted. Like, if any staff member in that place was really there for the right reasons, I know that man was there for the right reasons. And he did my intake, so I got a lucky on that one for sure. And yeah, otherwise pretty much same intake story as everyone else. My head shaved, my bag went through, new uniform, like down to your underwear, squat and cough, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, right. So much fun.
Now,
That's great.
I've heard this thing about going down to the underwear. I'm sure it wasn't. Were they boxers? I mean, it's usually what they have, right? Boxers.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I understand where they're coming from with that. It's just, yeah, that one I don't really, because kids do try to sneak stuff in. Like during the time I was there, I acted like friends of mine didn't try to sneak stuff in.
Yeah, but when you're a kid, though, kid, you're not going to be using your ass as tourist or luggage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like,
come on, really? What kid in the right mind is, well, I'm going to this boarding school, better, stick something up my ass so I can take it in there. Who does that?
But there's probably one that did do it, because remember they used to get gang members and stuff going to the Agape. Like
Okay.
when my time out there, I'm sure
sense.
someone did it. So there's someone got caught probably with something. How did you get this in? Oh, up my butt. And then from now on, like everyone's just, it's a freaking 8-year-old kid coming in. It's like they're like
a just in case, basically. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's cool that they let you guys wear boxers. When I got there, the itinerary or whatever it was Tighty Whiteys. And I remember getting there with I never wore Tighty Whiteys, but I had to wear them that day or something like that. Like I didn't understand what my family was doing. And I remember getting there and just having to strip down in Tighty Whiteys and then getting to the dorms and everyone else is wearing boxers, and I'm like
Oh.
15-year-old dude like in tighty whities walking around like.
Tighty Whiteys.
Yeah, that's cool that you guys at least wore boxers, but dang,
Yeah.
that's. So did they give you a buddy right off the bat too? I'm assuming.
Yeah, my first buddy was actually a captain. I think he might have been the only captain at the time. Maybe one other one. But I will say my introduction to Agape was very gentle compared to a lot of kids. I definitely just kind of kept my head down and just like I was in shock.
Went with the program,
Like,
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I'm still only 2 years removed from being like a naive homeschooled kid, right? In that
Yeah.
2 years in high school, I did get into a lot of messed up stuff. But at some level, like I haven't had a lot of like crazy life experience at that point. So just walking all of a sudden into this huge room filled with kids was just crazy. Like, where am I and what's going on? And when I first got to Agape, they had started getting a lot of rough kids back at that point. It seems like around 2015, 16, 17, 18. They're actually around 2017 it stopped, but there was a lot of court ordered kids there at that point.
Oh wow.
Not like the majority, but there's definitely like a big difference in the kind of kids that were there between my first few months and my last few months.
You weren't court ordered.
No, not at all.
Okay. All right, because this thing with the court ordered, I think that's kind of a violation of the church and state. I mean,
Well,
if you get the state sending you to a Christian school,
I never thought about that.
I mean, it's like AA. AA is a Christian organization too, but it just seems kind of weird that they would. Do you think they would send you to a state institution, state run? But
Yeah.
I guess they got away with it.
Well, I think what they did was, if I remember correctly, because I had a couple of friends that were there in court orders, and they basically were cut deals, and I don't remember the exact numbers, so I'm just going to give like a random example, but it was something along the lines of like, you can do like 4 months in juvie, or you can go to Agape for a year. And all of my friends who had been to juvie beforehand and took a deal along those lines were kicking themselves, because they were like, juvie was like summer camp compared to this place.
I've heard that so many times from people that have been in prison or even in prison afterwards, and they're like, "Dude, prison was better than Agape." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Because like at Agape, they make it sound like prison, like you're getting raped every night and like stabbed and like whatever. They make it sound so terrible, and you're so afraid of it. But in reality, it's like it's like a all-inclusive resort.
Well, that's what they're good at, James. They're good at installing fear. That's one of their main goals. Install
Absolutely.
fear in you. Fear of prison, fear of hell, all that kind of stuff.
I can't even explain how scared I was for a long time to like open up like even like on the internet or anything about like these stories, because I legitimately for like, over a year just had these thoughts in my head like, if they're right and I try to take them down, like God's gonna punish me.
Right.
If they're right, like God will punish me. I shouldn't do this. I can't try to take down Agape. They're trying to help me.
They're doing God's work, and if I'm going against God's people, like what's going to happen? Like
it really took some counseling and just like some time to really get a lot of those ideas out of my head, and I'm still dealing with a lot of those after effects, but it's definitely gotten a lot better.
Dang. So this is taking a lot for you to probably even come on here and talk about what went on, but then again, at the same time, like you're really just telling the facts. You're not coming on here. Like a lot of guys that come on here, they're not emotional. They're not screaming, yelling about Agape. They're just saying the facts about what happened there, and sharing stories about what happened there. It's not like you're going around bad mouthing and spreading rumors and making up stuff. I can understand that and being worried about like God's punishment, if you believe in that. But then if you're just going around telling the truth, I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's one thing is that's the way it was treated there though too. It's like if you saw a staff member do something bad, you couldn't go talk to another staff member about that. You're more likely to get in trouble by far than that staff member is. Like that's just truth was what the pastor said it was, not what happened there. Which is just such a weird dynamic because I already came from a Christian home, so I already had a lot of like some of those reinforced ideas in my head, just not to that extent. But it just took some like I said, some counseling and stuff to really like get it out of my head. Like, these guys don't control me. I live 3,000 miles away from Pastor Burton. Like, he has no say over my life. Why do I care what he thinks?
Right.
It's basically it's basically his interpretation of the Bible.
Mhm.
Every pastor has their own interpretation. So,
Right.
go ahead, James.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And no, you're good. And that's just like what you're saying, Jason. That's what they're good at. That fear, and it's like that's one of their tools that they use. I remember when I left Agape after being on staff for a year, and I came back home, and I was hanging out with my little cousin who's like 3 years younger than me, and like we're like best friends. So I was 19, and he was 16, and we're just kicking it, hanging out, and like, and my cousin asked me, he's like, dude, like. He's like, so did you beat up these kids? Did you, when you were staff, do you beat them up to keep them in line? I'm like, no, I never hit a kid, never laid hands on them. He's like, how do you get them to listen to you? I was like, well, I'd use my voice and I would make them afraid of me, like by yelling and screaming at them. And he's like, yeah, right, dude. Like, you're like the nicest guy in the world. What do you mean yelling at them? And I was like, you want an example? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, I took a deep breath and I just like turned on him. I just started screaming at him like you would do at Agape as a staff member to a student, to a kid. And like my cousin's face went white and he just like just got scared shitless. And he's like, dude, I almost pissed my pants. Are you kidding me? Like, that's how you talk to the kids? And I was like, yeah, that's what they taught us. Like, that to instill that fear into the kids. Like, oh my gosh. So I can understand how all this time later, being out of Agape, having it still in your head, because that's all you knew during the time there was to be afraid.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Dang, dude. So you got your buddy, right? But you didn't really get in trouble, which good for you, man. You kept your mouth shut. I mean, that's most of our problems. We just can keep our mouth shut. So you had no issues at all with your intake, nothing like that. Like, it was just pretty smooth sailing.
Honestly, my intake and my first 2 weeks went super smooth. Like, I'm so grateful for that, because who knows how I would react to the place had like my first month been like some other kids, like that can just destroy your mind. But so went super smooth, got into a gray shirt, like out of buddy status within like 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow.
And kind of spent my first, like, up until around 3 months just being stupid. Like, I wasn't really trying hard yet. I was just kind of trying to fit into the system there with the kids. So I wasn't like getting in like a lot of fights and getting sent to Browntown and all this stuff, but I definitely wasn't like trying the program at all. Like, I wasn't doing school. I wasn't paying attention really to anything. And then about a month before my 4-month visit, I realized, like, yeah, maybe I should try to impress my parents so I can go home, which is just a really broken part of the whole program. It's like, from what I saw, there's a few, but from talking to the other kids there, none of us were bought into the program or what they were teaching at all. All of us were just like, I just want to get home, and I will say whatever it needs to be said to get home. Like,
yeah.
So I feel bad at some level. I do feel bad for these people at Agape that think they're like converting all these kids and baptizing all these kids every week, and then after they get back to their seat and bump you with their elbow and say, hopefully my parents take me home now. It's like,
right.
Well, see, the Baptists,
that's a really good point.
The Baptists have a thing called once saved, always saved. Where once you accept Jesus, they think it's real and genuine, but of course, some kids do it just to, go into the system smoothly and with no ruffling of any feathers to get out of there sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But they figure that, well, the doctrine is basically, you're saved if you screw up, no matter what it is. You know what I mean? If, let's say you leave and you become a heroin addict or something, that's okay. Get off of it. Just ask Jesus to forgive you. You're golden, man.
Yeah.
You're back on the right track again. That's how it is. No matter what you do, all you got to do is just ask Jesus to forgive you. Mm-hmm. You're good. So
for sure, like they twist the Bible so much. Like, at some level, I do agree with like Christianity. I don't disagree with a lot of like the modern organized church, especially after seeing what's going on at Agape. But the teachings are good, and like a lot of the kids that I've kept in touch with still realize that. Like, especially with stuff going on in the world now, I've talked with friends of mine, former students, that are like, did you find a good church, man? Like, did you find an actual, like, real church? Like, don't let go of God, man. Like, that's one thing I will say. A lot of these kids did, when you're sitting there and reading the Bible for, what was it, James, half an hour or 45 minutes every morning?
Yep. Every morning. Yep.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time just straight reading the words without getting the interpretation from the pastors. And some of us that were actually like paying attention during Bible reading and stuff, trying to like come to our own conclusions, found some verses that we'd like show to each other. Like, how does this make sense? Like, God's supposed to be a God of love and a God of forgiveness, but they're talking. Yeah. It's like,
Dude, I totally agree with you on that, man. Like when I was religious and I was into it and I started reading the Bible and actually trying to like do that when I was at Agape. And I remember I would also preach too. I was like a preacher boy doing preaching and stuff. And same thing. Like I remember reading the Bible. Like it's just, if you read the Bible, it talks about a God of love, not this chastising father that's waiting for you to screw up just so he can punish you. And it was like, but that's not the God they talk about there. Like, and if you start saying like, oh yeah, the Bible says God, oh no, they don't want you telling you, because they don't want the kids thinking that there's this like loving father that's going to be there for them. They want the kids afraid of this God, afraid of doing things wrong, this fear, and it's like, it's really interesting. Yeah.
Well, that's why they usually, make you read specific passages. I mean, some places like say the Old Testament where God's killing everybody, letting
Right.
Israelites rape, little girls and kill women and stuff. How are you going to spin that? You know what I mean? It's so just read this specific Don't worry about the Old Testament. Just read this, and you're going to be fine. So,
well, I remember there being times they would bring up, like, there was a verse, maybe I think it was about like music or something. They would bring up this verse in like Leviticus about music, and literally a verse before it, it's a verse about like something along the lines of what you were just saying, like some wild like kill your daughter if she sleeps with another man, some stuff like that. It's like, how do you decide which ones we still have to follow and which don't? That's one thing that never really made sense to me.
well, there is a passage in there that says if your daughter is raped, then the guy that raped her has to marry her, or give the father 50 shekels or something like that. I mean, it's just horrific,
It, yeah, it's. I remember the with the music thing. Like I struggled with that because I DJ now and I produce music and do that kind of stuff. So I remember like initially struggling with that when I got out of Agape, and like I remember they used to use that Bible verse about when Moses came down from the mountain from getting the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
And like the children of Israel, whatever they were like, he heard like a booming, like a thumping in the distance, and they're like banging and making music with they're making beats as they worshiped the idol. And that was the Bible verse, for at least when I was there, that they used a lot to prove that like music with the beat is sin, because it's like they would go as far as saying that it goes against your heartbeat, the natural heartbeat, and it changes the way your heartbeat beats, and like it'll actually like change up your whole like dynamic of a human.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you're in a frequency of the devil. I'm like, and I believed it at the time.
Yeah.
But I'm like,
They would go even further than that. I remember the counselor there, Pastor Hartman. He was this super old guy with a really kind heart. He was it was similar to like a certain like presidential candidate. It was like, dude, just go to a retirement home. Like, you are old. Just retire, please. Like, you're old. Super kind-hearted dude, but like and he would just read. He had like, I think it was like 90 lessons that he had written, and one of them was about music. And a large portion of it wasn't even from the Bible. It was this Baptist independent study that had been done, where they put a plant in front of a speaker playing rock and roll and a plant in front of a speaker playing classical music. And they said within 24 hours, the plant in front of the speaker playing rock and roll had wilted over and died. Come on.
Anecdotal
Like,
evidence right there. Yeah. Hearsay. That's the reason why a lot of Baptists, they have just organ or piano in their songs. They don't have bass or drums or anything like that. And then remember the backward masking when they would get the
Yep.
songs and they'd backward mask it and say Satan or something. It's like, please.
Oh, yeah.
It was like Stairway to Heaven. Like that was a
Yep.
popular one. If you
That
play
was a
backwards,
popular
it's
one.
like Satan, I give you my life, or
Yep.
something like that. It's like
There was another one, El Dorado from Electric Light Orchestra. That was another one
Really?
that they did.
That's so
Yeah.
funny. But they use this stuff to get you so afraid that, like, I remember being out in the real world after I left Agape and like hearing music from the car next to me at a red light and be like, like rolling up my windows and like, oh no, like God forgive me, I'm so sorry, I heard that, like
Wow.
Yeah. I remember getting back and like trying to compromise. I was like, I just got out of Agape. Like, I want to hear some hip hop. I've heard there's Christian hip hop out there. I spent a couple weeks listening to Christian hip hop before I realized like music's just entertainment, and you should be able to make your own decisions with your own conscience on what you listen to.
Right.
Yeah, that Christian rock came out in the '80s. Man, the Baptists were just furious. You know, they're singing about Christ, but they're of the devil because they got that beat. You know,
guitars and drums, man.
And the thing is now.
Yeah.
To attract the kids, because a lot of kids are becoming atheists, you know, and turning away from the church. So now they're having to compromise as well. Okay, you see some of these places, non-denominational or Pentecostals, that have these gigantic, halls, and they got a full band there playing worship songs. You know, just it's all about getting those kids. Get them while they're young, man. Get them while they're young.
Yeah. Well, that's how it is here in California too. Like a lot of the churches, it's a full on rock band up there and full on like full production with like you see at a concert with lights and lighting rigs and lasers and everything. And like those are but I mean, teach their own. But it's just when you get out of Agape, I remember getting out and like trying to find a good church. And everywhere I went, it was like rock music being played, or girls were wearing pants. You know, even the churches Agape recommended, and I was like, "What is going on here? Like this, like how do I survive out here?"
They're compromising. That's what they were doing. They were compromising to get more people in. More people you have there, the more money you're going to make. You know what I mean?
So I'm curious. So were you there till you because you're going back in the story. Like your attitude, like 4 months, you said like 3 months in, you decided to start taking it serious because you were having your 4-month visit. But most kids, when they get sent there, are told you're here till you graduate. So they get to work, like schoolwork or whatever. Like, do you know what you were told? Because you seemed to not take it serious at first, whatever your mentality was.
Yeah. So basically, at the point when I gotten sent there, I was halfway through grade 11. I got sent there in March of 2017, and I'd been dropped out for a couple of months. So basically, I had done that first semester of school in my second grade of high school back home, but I hadn't gotten enough credits. I'd gotten like a couple side courses, but I'd failed everything else. So I basically had grade 11 and 12 to finish. And excuse me. Where was I? So yeah, when I first got sent there, they didn't give me a specific time or anything. Like in the intake room before he left and Dan took over, I remember Julio telling me like, this is a 1-year program. You're going to be here for 1 year. But as soon as I started talking to other students, I figured out like some students leave at 4 months. Some students leave after 5 years. Like there's no real 1 year to it. Right. So I didn't really get an answer from my parents on how long I was going to be there until my 4-month visit. I didn't get an actual answer from them, but they have this meeting with the dean, maybe with the principal. I can't remember who it was with, in an office, and I had to sit outside the office while they had that meeting. And I went and put my ear up to the door, and I heard them talking like, "Oh, like I think we should keep him here till he graduates." Which, at the point I was at, like, I can, with the stuff that was being fed them by these staff, I can't even blame my parents in all of this. Like, I don't want to come in here and rip my parents. They had good intentions. They're just, I think, very naive into what they're getting into and unwilling to believe that a place with like a cross on the front of it would be willing to scam them for money. Right?
If it's Christian, it's got to be good. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and also to your point, what you just said too. That's great. You said that because it's like I know I've heard of some people. They said their parents felt bad after finding out what went on, they're really guilty, whatever. It's like, you got to realize Agape's been doing this for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
They've dealt with hundreds of parents across all states, all nationalities, every background. They are experts at getting your kid into their program. So, and most of these parents are so desperate, they don't know what to do, and they want to help you.
Mhm.
So they feel like they're doing the best. So yeah, I'm glad you said that.
One really strange experience I had. I remember I said that I had a really smooth first month, but one bad experience that I did have was on literally like my first week. I think I got there on a Monday, so this is still within my first like Monday to Friday, and I was in the learning center working on like my first math cases, and they had some sort of staff in there that was doing like tutoring for people that needed like questions to be answered, right? His name was Steven. He's ex-military, former student there actually. And yeah, I just went to ask this guy for a math question, and he starts pressing me about, like, I just went over there for math questions, and he starts pressing me about why are you doing this to your mom and stuff. And I didn't even know who this guy was or how he knew my mom or any of this. I was really freaked out. He's getting like harsh with me, not in my face yelling, but like, why are you doing this to your mom? Like, who do you think you are? Like, I'm sitting here like asking him like, how do you know my mom? And he's like, all he told me was, I've been on the phone with her. I come to find out he was when my parents called Agape to talk to staff at Agape, I just remembered, this is a crazy story. So the reason he wasn't working with students at the time that my parents like were talking to him on the phone was because a few months before, a captain had asked him why he was treating students badly. A captain, keep in mind. And he had grabbed this captain by the throat and thrown him up against a wall and was choking him until staff had to pull him up and restrain him.
Oh
So
my
he got
gosh.
basically suspended from working with students. Now, I do want to say, this man did serve the United States. He's ex-military, and I absolutely respect all the service that he did. But
Right.
From stories that I've heard, allegedly, like, he saw some real stuff over there, and absolute respect to that man for going through that. But when you've been through that, maybe working with kids isn't the best option.
Yeah.
When you have some pretty obvious PTSD, maybe working with troubled teens isn't a good option. Because there was multiple points in the time I was there where this guy got violent with students and had to be pulled off by staff.
Wow. That's what they're working on right now with the legislators. Like, they're in Missouri, they're trying to work on like a 3-strike rule or something like that, where if you had 3 strikes with choking students or something like that, he would no longer be able to work with kids anymore or something.
That blows my mind that it's 3 strikes.
Yeah, it should be.
I know,
one.
right? Yes.
Like, what?
I know. Yeah, it's like, oh, you did it once. Okay, sorry. Oh, twice. Sorry.
What?
Okay, 3rd time. Now there's a problem. Yeah, I know, right?
Like, who knows how far this guy would have gone if staff didn't pull him off every time this happened?
Right.
What if the first time he kills somebody? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And wow, that's crazy. So he was just kind of not getting in your face, but just kind of giving you crap, like, why are you doing this to your mom, and like, but he was just yelling at you, like, he wasn't actually getting physical, right?
It wasn't like we've all seen staff get in the student's face and yell. He wasn't like getting too like crazy with it. Like, we were just sitting at a table, but he was like very low, serious voice, like, what are you doing to your parents? Like, who do you think you are? And then we keep going on math questions, and he's just being ridiculous with me. Like, I didn't understand something he's saying, and he's like, what are you smoking in your crack pipe? And I'm sitting here like, in my head, I'm like, dude, do you want me to get sober, or are you gonna make fun of me? Like, what am I here for? Like, what? Like,
right? Yeah, it's like, and you're probably not. And like, why are you talking about drugs with me?
Yeah,
really? Like, why we're not supposed to talk about drugs?
Yeah, it's like I knew already at the point when I got sent there, like, I had a problem. It's not the worst drug out there, but I definitely had like a coke problem before I got sent to Agape, which for a 15-year-old is dangerous, absolutely, or 16-year-old, excuse me. But like, you're gonna make fun of me when I'm trying to get help. It's like, it just blew my mind. And early on, kind of at that point, and with other interactions that I'd seen with staff and students, I knew very early, like, there's a couple people here that do want to help us, but you can't trust these people. Like, they're very clearly not here, all of them, for the right reasons.
Yeah. Do they
And
do they do background checks on these people? I mean, you know,
No, I can't
ex
imagine that at all.
ex homeless guy or ex addict, all of a sudden he, gets saved and accepts Jesus. Oh, okay, brother, come on in.
I will
You're
say,
perfect.
I will say that the kindest staff that like went out of his way the most to help the students during his time there, without being one of the stupid staff that's like bringing in contraband and stuff, was an ex crackhead from Chicago. His name was David, and this man, I swear, I probably wouldn't have gotten through my first 4 months without this staff there. He really he had a crew of people that I think was clean the dining hall or the kitchen or something like that I got on, and he would go out of his way to once a month like make a night for us just super special, like take us up to the movie room, watch like the big sports game that none of the other kids got to watch, like bring us a bunch of food and stuff. There was some staff there that had background checks that happened, might not have been there, but like that's a sacrifice you got to make. There's staff there who if someone's both names have been said on the podcast a lot, can I say it? I'll just say because people
Go ahead.
I mean,
if something, I can edit it out. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I'll just say the last name, Sheldon. He was a former staff at Circle of Hope, I believe, who had gotten caught having sex with one of the underage girls, and they moved him to Agape. And
Okay.
this is a student who, like, a lot of the stories that I think it was oh my, what's his name? You guys had a kid on here who would just back to back to back was just like slamming y'all these crazy stories. Lucas. The story is telling about the kid getting beat in the gym and like thrown up and stuff. I was there for that too. That was Sheldon. There's multiple other instances, like just insane stuff from this guy, a former student. The former students, in all honesty, with the exception of Julio and Leo, I wasn't there for Brian, so I can't speak for him, seemed to be the worst. The staff that were there that weren't in power positions, that weren't former students, all seemed to be there for the right reason. It was just the ones in power and the ones that were former students were just had this different way of doing things that blew everyone's mind.
I mean, I could see that, like me being a student when I became a staff member there, like, you know, I started falling off the rocker the way the Agape wanted to run stuff. Like my last 6 months at staff, like I stopped doing things the way they wanted them done. You know, like being mean to students and stuff like that. I started making friends with everybody, and they did not like that. But I know what you mean, because like the staff member that kicked my butt when I first got there, like with the punching and stuff, he was a former student, and then like a lot of the guys that ran the dorms that were complete a-holes, you know, and like beating up kids and like doing the restraints and all that stuff, they're former students. Yeah, I've never put that together, but that's a really good point.
I think I know what it was. I've never really heard anyone bring up the reason for why those former students do that, except for like they went through the same thing themselves. But the culture when I was there at Agape, from like all these whenever like former staff were running the day, you know it was going to be bad, because all you were going to hear about the whole day was the way things used to be. And that was kind of the culture from the harsher staff, was like, they're so lax on you guys now. Like, we're taking it back. We're going to take it back to the way things used to be. That was such a huge phrase that was thrown around all the time from staff at Agape. The way things used to be, the old Agape. And they would like, anytime there was complaints about like the quality of life there, it would just get shot down immediately with, well, in the old Agape, like in the 90s.
Back in my day.
Yeah, literally, that was the whole thing. Back in my day, it's like you didn't even get
so weird.
It's like
it's like if you went through that, like all the stuff we're talking to, you went through that and you experienced it, and it was hell for you. Why? Like, that's the thing I don't get. I don't remember why I felt the need to do it too as a staff member. Like, why would you want to repeat that cycle on someone else?
One thing that like I do have to say, if I'm gonna come on this podcast and like talk like about like a lot of the bad stuff that happened at Agape, is I did become a red shirt at a certain point in my stay there, and have like, I can't even pass the blame. Like, I did take out a lot of anger on students there. Like, you say you were former staff, you've been there too, right? Like, when you finally got to have that feeling that the staff had over you, it was like heroin. It was like the best feeling you ever had. It was like, I can make this person feel like nothing without even
Right.
trying. And it,
Yeah.
looking back, like I've had to text some kids, like look them up on Facebook and text them and be like, I'm so sorry. Like I
Yeah.
didn't, there's no excuse for that. Like I just truly like was taking out my anger that I had towards these staff on you, and I'm so sorry for that.
Yeah.
And
Dude.
yeah,
Dude, I feel you. That's cool that you did that. Like that because it's weird. I don't understand either. Like I did the same thing when I moved up in the ranks, and same thing. I got terrible. And I all these 20 years later, I have kids. I'm trying to do all these podcasts and stuff. I'm like, oh, you should go on these podcasts. And like, I remember how you were at the boarding school. I remember how you were and how you treated us. And I'm like, my buddy. Like I was in the program, and they give you a buddy. Like and like my buddy recently reached out to me. Like that I had there, like when he first got there, and I was his buddy, and like when he reached out, I was like, dude, I was so worried what he's gonna say. I was like, dude, first off, if I was an a-hole to you, I am so sorry, dude. Like I hope it didn't cause any problems or psychological. And he's like, no, like, yeah.
Honestly, like a lot of the students, one thing that like I'm not sure if this carried on with like your generation, other generations of Agape, but like we did have a real big sense of community. Like as soon as I got out and like added a couple people that I knew there that had gotten out before me on Snapchat, all of a sudden I was added to like these Snapchat groups, and it was just like all the boys.
Oh, that's cool.
So there is with a lot of like my generation of Agape, there is like this sense of community, and that like we do got to check in on each other. And that's one thing, like I see like some old Facebook posts like from older Agape students, like has anyone heard from blank and blank? And a lot of us saw those posts when we first got out. So I think I've talked to a few like my close friends from Agape, and it's like we got to keep track of the boys. Like we got to make sure everyone's doing good to like support everyone. Like I've hit up multiple, like not my closest friends there, but friends I had there. Just like I'm no guru, I'm no counselor or anything, but if you just want to talk about like what we both went through there, like I'm here, and if anyone's listening to this right now that has my info, that is still like, again, I'm not smart, I don't have any answers, but like if you want to talk about it and just like talk about the good and the bad memories, like I think that's one thing that really helps a lot of us.
Oh yeah, it can be therapeutic. Sure.
Yeah, and it's cool that you got that offer out there, man. Like I hope people take you up on that, because I've from my generation, there's been so many guys I've known that like they just didn't know anyone to turn to or anyone to talk to about their issues or the problems or whatever, and they just end up, God forbid they took their own lives or whatever it was, or just like hooked on drugs. And it's that support system's huge. Like Agape doesn't offer anything like that, like
Absolutely.
they don't say, hey, here's this group, here's this person to talk to, here's this, call us if you need anything. They're just like, you're done, your parents are done paying, get out of here.
Absolutely, yeah. One thing just came into my mind that really blew me away when I heard it. You remember when Lucas was talking, and I think one other staff was talking about it too, the new staff that runs Browntown, that like throws basketballs at kids and stuff?
Yep.
That was my first buddy that I had, who was a captain, who was like super, super nice in his time there. That dude was so nice to the students as a captain, and then he left.
Weird.
And all of a sudden I hear now that he's back, and he's like brutal, like just brutal to these kids. I don't really understand how someone does that. Like he wasn't brainwashed by the program when he was there.
That's weird. Yeah, I wonder, but I only can make assumptions, but I wonder if it's being encouraged by the higher up staff. Like, hey, you got to be rough on these kids. You got to, especially with Brian back to running things. Brian was a lot of the problems back in the day. Like he was one that was instigating and pushing and causing a lot of the staff to be rough with the kids. So who knows? Like I said, I'm just making random accusations, but who knows? Maybe he is pushing the staff to be how things were. It's too soft now. Like
for sure. Who knows? Well, when I was there, Julio was running things. Julio was running like the school, and Alan was running. Or Julio was running like the student body, and Alan was the principal of the school, and that was pretty much like the 1 and 2. Like they were running our day to day, and Julio. I could do a whole podcast just about Julio specifically, because like I said, I really bought into the program for a few months and kind of in the middle of my stay, like became a red shirt, became friends with Julio, like part of his little workout group and stuff, and started really buying into this program. And the more stuff I saw from this man, it like I've heard a lot of stories about Brian, and we both remember Leo, and there's some other staff that really just seem to like think differently. But Julio by far was, in my opinion, in my time there, like the most manipulative and like abusive staff by far. As dean, like, oh, I could go on all day, but there's so many times where like whole weeks of stuff would get canceled. He would, I don't know. You might have to like ask me some specific questions about Julio, because I don't really like.
When you say stuff got canceled, do you mean like extracurricular activities, like being able to like, you know, like free time on Friday nights and stuff like that getting canceled, or what?
Constantly, but not because we did anything. The deal with Julio, one of his he had a few catchphrases that we all kind of like would mock behind his back, just because he used them so much. And every time he got on a mic, he was like yelling at us these same catchphrases. And one of them was along the lines of like, "There's no, I'm not gonna hold a carrot in front of you," or something like that. So basically, one of the big ideas that he was pushing is that we don't owe you free time. We don't owe you blank. We don't owe you not brown food. That's one idea that he tried to push. So
Yeah.
there would be Saturdays where we just wouldn't get free time, because it wouldn't be because anybody got punished or any reason. Julio would just say, it's a privilege, not a right, and you didn't earn that privilege. So it was really strange. Julio, totally not trying to be an armchair psychologist, just observing from what I saw in there, but this man seemed extremely bipolar, like not just in having like a kind of a manic high and a manic low personality, but in his ideas too. Like when he was in this super hyped up mode for a few days, he'd start talking about like, oh, we're going to start having FaceTime meetings with your parents for captains, and we're building a weight room. We're going to build a weight room outside, and we're going to do this, and like all these crazy things. And like you can see the other staff rolling their eyes. Like none of this is going to change. Like, and he would just go off on these tangents trying to like change the whole school. Not necessarily for the better, just change the whole school. And none of it would ever happen, ever. Like, just really strange guy. I'd really be interested to know how that guy's brain works.
Just they hype you up and they bring you up here only to just smash you down.
Oh, just a
Build
big
up
thing
your
with
hopes.
Julio too. A big thing with Julio too was he came from supposedly like the hood in a city in California. I can't remember which city, but and that's one thing that he just pushed so hard on everyone. Like, I swear if this man didn't push like his Christianized, like the bad old days when I was doing this stuff, stories on like the popular kids at the school all the time, half the fights and half the little gangs and stuff that started wouldn't have happened, because Julio literally just still like seemed to have this immature like fantasy with like street stuff and gang kids, and like anytime a kid from a gang showed up, it was his best friend, and he would use this kid to like target other students and be physical with them and stuff. Like,
and this is a dean, right? You said?
Yeah, he was the dean for the last, I'd say, like 3/4 of my time there.
That's so interesting, dude. It's Jason, when you hear about these guys that are like running like the school and like the way they act, the way their behavioral traits, everything, the way their brain works, it's crazy to think like, you know, you got these kids being sent to school for behavioral problems, right? And some of them are coming from homes where there's inconsistencies and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden your authority is these people that also are inconsistent, you know? Like one week they're your best friends, the next week you're getting punished for something you don't know what. The next week they just woke up on the side of the bed or ate some bad pizza the night before, and they're taking it out on you the next morning, you know, in Browntown. You know, it's like it's man, it just does so much like psychological work on you, where you're just like, as a kid, you're looking at these adults, like seeing what kind of mood are they in today. Depending on their mood, is what kind of day I'm going to have.
Sure. And Julio's the worst for that, in all honesty. Like, that man really, like, took a toll on a lot of us, I think. Like, it was just, that guy shouldn't be working with kids. Like, he's too angry all the time, and too like you can't have that temperament and work with kids full time. How can you expect that to help anybody? It's like
a lot of that
and this
staff.
man,
A lot of that staff shouldn't be working with kids.
and like the thing that blows my mind with him too is that he would work like these insane hours at the school. He literally has, I can't remember the exact number, but definitely between like 5 and 8 kids. I can't imagine he's helping his wife at all with any of that. It's like,
Right.
I don't know, but kind of getting sidetracked just on Julio there.
Well,
Just a lot of stuff I saw from him that was just like, as the dean of the school, was unbelievable. Like, there was a kid that was gay during my time there that I was friends with. Super nice kid. Like, still talk to him sometimes to this day. Like, super great guy. And he just, a lot of students kind of just left him alone for the most part. Like, it seems like it's changed a little bit from the older days. There are like a lot of pretty accepting students.
Right.
But this kid did get picked on a lot and stuff. And I saw like, this dude's smart. He's getting his paces done. He's staying out of trouble, and he's not like like I can't connect with this person at all. Like, he's a super normal kid, right? And I remember one time he applied for a promotion within his burgundy shirt, because as a burgundy you could be like it was like a private and a lieutenant and a something before you became a red shirt. And he was applying for a burgundy promotion, as some of us that at the time were Julio's favorites were hanging out in Julio's office, just kicking it.
Right.
And this promotion slip came in from this kid, and Julio drew a big, in front of us as a joke, drew a big penis on the promotion slip and then threw it in the garbage. We don't promote. And I'm going to say this word with like, nobody take this the wrong way. I'm repeating what he said. Draws a big penis on the promotion slip from this gay kid, throws it in the garbage, and says, "We don't promote fags." It's like, are you kidding me? You're supposed to be accepting these kids and trying to help them, but you're not even letting them get promoted just because he has a high voice.
Right. Yeah, or just his sexual preference, whatever. Yeah.
This kid actually did end up getting caught doing stuff, which I can't blame him for, but was breaking the rules. So, you know what I mean? Like, kind of gray area. But this kid hadn't even been caught doing anything or like been involved in anything sketchy at this point. Like, he had a high voice and feminine mannerisms, so they wouldn't promote him. It was unreal. Like, it was honestly really sad.
That's and once again, like, reiterating this for everyone watching this, that this is the dean of Agape boarding school threw a penis on this thing and said, "We don't promote fags here," and threw it in the trash and would not. This is a guy that parents were wanting to send their kids to school and learn from this guy and be trained by him. It's like,
the whole point is to make them better people, you know.
Right.
And of course, being that they're Christian, it's kind of like reversing the gay. You know what I mean?
Pray the gay away.
Yes, but instead they're mocking them.
Right.
You know, they're calling them names. They're belittling them. What kind of fucking program is that?
Yeah, it's the same stuff that's not everywhere in the world, but it's the same stuff they do, the same persecution they're dealing with in the world. Now they're at the school where it's, you know, being ran by godly people, and the same stuff's happening there that's happening in the secular world with, you know, with when they're coming out and saying they're gay. It's like, no, you know, I'm not religious, but from a religious standpoint, you're supposed to love. You're supposed to be accepting. We're all God's creatures, right? We're all God's children, right?
Pray for them,
right?
Basically.
Yeah. Yeah, you could pray for them, but don't pray the gay way. Don't pray to make them different. Don't pray to change them in who do you think they should be or how they should be. It's like, didn't God create them? Didn't God give them everything that they have right now to be who they are? Like, you know, it's like...
Well, and like, a lot of the principles that the school runs on aren't even necessarily bad. That's the thing that blew me away, is like, if that school literally ran by like the procedures that it has on paper, I wouldn't send my kid there, but it wouldn't be like, there wouldn't be abuses going on there if they ran by the letter of the law. It would just be a very strict, very religious program, right? But it's not even like they're running by their own laws. They'll say staff have to do this in this situation, but a student will literally roll his eyes at an angry staff member and get slammed headfirst into a wall. It's like, where's that in the procedures? Show me that. Show me that one.
Right. Yeah, and exactly. It's like, if a student rolls his eyes, you know, it's not like that's in their handbook that they give to your parents. If your son rolls his eyes at us, you're agreeing to us to let us slam his head into a wall. and restrain him for 2 hours because he rolled his eyes. You know, no parent in their right mind would agree to that kind of treatment. But then I think that's a problem too when all these parents are hearing this. You know, like they're just like they're in disbelief because like, wait, no, like the handbook says this and this is how they're going to treat you and this is what's going to happen there. And you're coming out saying like, no, like this happened. I witnessed this. I saw them do this. And they're just like in disbelief. They're like, there's no way that this godly place, they would never do this. You know?
Sure.
Oh,
You know what's funny is if you go on YouTube and type in Agape Boys Ranch, all the Hammer podcast videos are right on the top.
It's amazing.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
I got to give a little shout out too. If you look up Agape Boarding School on Instagram, the first thing that pops up below the official like Agape Boarding School account is an account run by me and one of my friends called Exposing Agape. We have a bunch of stories from former students posted in there, updates on like current news of what's going on in Agape, and just we have a petition that we don't know like how far it'll get or whatever, but we do have 1,300 signatures on it currently.
Well, tell you what, send me when the podcast is over. Send me a link, and I'll put it in the description.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
That way we can get the word out. So
That's cool. I've seen that Exposing Agape. I don't know if I knew before you said that if you ran it. Like who else runs it with you?
Well, we were originally staying anonymous, but I personally don't really care. I mean, if they're gonna try to sue me for some sort of like making bad accusations about him, I live in a different country. I'm personally not too worried about it. I'll take that risk to hopefully if like I don't think at this point like where our account's at like it's gonna get Agape shut down. But if all I care about is like if a parent looks up Agape on Instagram and they see Exposing Agape Boarding School, they might click on it and scroll through and see story after story after story of these kids just getting brutalized mentally and physically.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And people are noticing the podcast too, like with the Jason's videos that he's posting. Like you see some of the comments on there that former parents of former students or parents of students or I guess pre-students. The kids that are being being talked to about being sent to Agape, and they're watching these podcasts, and they're like, "Holy crap!" Like
that one comment that you had, that was
There's one lady that's kind of going through it right now where her son, they're just talking about like potentially sending him to Agape, and she saw these videos, and she's like, can I get like written testimonies from people or something that way we don't send my son to this school, like because it's some legal stuff, but it's getting attention definitely, and it helps like just you coming on talking. You didn't get the crap kicked out of you and beat up and thrown around, but still like you witnessed stuff that went on there, and also the psychological, like all of this is important to hear for people.
Me and a couple of my friends there were definitely like among like the group that was doing like better in school and stuff like that, and staying there. Like once I got out of that phase of like trying to please Julio and keep my red shirt and stuff, I got out of my red shirt, got demoted. What ended up being Burgundy for the last like 4 or 5 months I was there, and in that time, me and a couple of my friends, who I still keep in touch with to this day, really like we are all 17 going on 18, like in grade 12, like not just naive kids really like getting abused anymore. Like we were looking around at the stuff happening in this place, and at the same time the kids that were showing up were getting younger and younger and younger, and less like kids that actually like when I first got there, a kid might get restrained for pushing a staff member. Still not okay, but like the kids were aggressive, By the time I left, it was these little kids who got sent there for like swearing and like there's a kid named Mason who I feel so bad for, and like earlier on I took out some stuff on him too, but like just a kid that wasn't all there, and he literally got sent there because he spent money on Roblox off his mom's credit card. And this kid just got pushed on every day by staff and students because he was an easy target. Like,
and even some of those kids that have, that take medication, they take that away.
Oh yeah, all of them. Yeah, 100%. Except for like certain necessary ones. Yeah.
Well, like insulin or something like that. Sure, I can understand that. But like stuff for ADD or whatever, bipolar.
Oh, they don't believe in that.
Yeah, they don't believe in that. That's demons, brother. That's demons. Yeah.
There is this kid there who, towards the end of my time, who was like pretty clearly, I don't know if he was psychotic or just like had some serious mental issues, but he very clearly like wasn't all there. And like multiple times on the dorm floor, he'd just start like moaning in his sleep, like not sexually at all, just weird, like like kind of like the
Wow.
guttural, like, these like noises, and he wouldn't even be sleeping, I don't think. And staff would be like telling him to stop and stuff. And there's I kind of blacked out my last couple months because I just wanted to get out of there so bad, and I was just
Yeah.
like, but I vaguely remember just him getting restrained in his first 2 weeks. I guarantee at least like 10 times. Like it seemed like every day this kid was just getting destroyed, and he was just beat up. Like just
Yeah.
he was defiant to staff. Like he constantly wouldn't do what he's being told. But if you had a brain and paid attention for 20 seconds talking to this kid, he clearly wasn't all there. Like very clearly wasn't all there.
But they're not. They're not. I don't know what the word is, like trained. They're not certified. They don't. They don't have any kind of, educational to take care of kids like that.
Mhm.
They don't know. Like they're treating those kids just like all the other kids. So when they're having an issue or a reaction to something, that you wouldn't react to in your normal mind, but they treat them the same way, and they're restraining them, and the kids like, and I remember kids like that would fight back on the restraint just because they don't think clearly, and
Mhm.
the staff are like, you're resisting, and they're restraining them more, and and
Yeah.
it's just like, and all of us kids are like watching, like just heartbroken, like, dude, are you kidding me? Like
Oh,
there was
sure.
yeah.
Like there was three kids there. There's three kids there in my time. There's some other special kids there for sure that got easier like rep from staff because they just kind of like kept their head down. But if you had mental issues there, like were one of the slower kids and you acted up, it was
Yeah.
not. You were the most abused child in that school. There's three students there in my time that like very clearly to any of us had like major issues, like major issues. I'm not talking like ADD or something like that. Like these kids are not all there. And
Yeah.
Scott, the so-called doctor, the nurse of the place, literally like usually on like I say he's a pretty cool guy, but looking back, he like said so much messed up stuff all the time, right? But he was nice to us students. He would like hang out with us and stuff, right? And I remember hanging out with him one time, asking like what he thought of these students, and he literally thought these kids were acting, and that was that these kids gave him. Like the amount of times I heard that staff Steven I mentioned earlier that choked out a student, he also got really mad at this one slow kid named Chandler. And the kid was just like saying something stupid, not even like offensive, just like not agreeing with what Steven was saying. And Steven like threw him up against a wall, same deal, and was like choking him and stuff. And it's like, this is a special kid that said something that made you mad, and you have to get pulled off by staff because you're hurting him.
Yeah.
And the kid's like very clearly special.
Well, if these kids were on their meds, it wouldn't be happening. The whole point of the medication is to straighten them. Yeah.
It just blows my mind. It's like they take them off they take them off the medication, and then the kids start acting up, and they say, "He's not special. He's just acting like this, so we can go home."
Right. Yeah.
They literally say that he's trying to act crazy, so we can go home. Like I remember, Scott, the nurse again talking about this kid that like on his first day they came into the bathroom and he had like smeared feces on the walls and stuff, and was like eating it and stuff. And it's like, even if you did that just to get home, you got to be crazy to do that. Like a normal person doesn't do that.
Yeah. Kids want to get out of there, but I can't imagine if everyone, all 200 students, would all of a sudden start eating their feces to get out of there. Like that. It takes a certain kind of like something in the head to be going on.
It's a whole new meaning to brown food, huh?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, dude, that's crazy. I remember when I was there was a kid that would have seizures, and I don't know if they took him off his meds or what, but he just would have seizures, and but he also would act out, just because of how he is. And I remember like they would be restraining him, and like he'd start having a seizure, like in the middle of them like restraining him, and like half the time they're like, oh, he's just faking it to get out of he's just faking it to get out of the restraint, And it's like, yeah, it's just. It's the stuff you think about, like now outside of it. You're like, man, that was so screwed up.
I'll tell you, Scott should have known that when you have seizures, there's a chance you could swallow your own tongue. You bite down. You got to put something in their mouth, a belt or something to keep them from busting their teeth. You got to do all this.
Yeah.
And
now restrain them more.
Yeah, you could die from that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's such a good thing that nobody died there.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yet, I mean, that's
hopefully it never happens.
Hopefully never.
Wood, but.
Hopefully never. But the way things are going,
yeah,
I mean, it's only a matter of time.
It really seems like they're trying to put a new face on the place as of the last year, especially since Brian came back, like with the football team and like getting a new chef and posting his like nice meals all the time and stuff. It really seems like they're trying to be smooth with it, and like, oh, like we're just a normal boarding school. Like, nah, guys, there's decades of people's testimonies online. All you have to do is scroll past page 1 on Google and you'll find multiple sites and multiple links and your podcasts and my account and these accounts on Facebook and all over. Like the word is getting out slowly but surely. Like the word is getting out.
Oh yeah, the channel's growing too. I mean,
it's great to see. I've been along since the first Agape episode.
Yeah.
Oh, that was you, James.
Sweet.
You were the first one.
I was the first?
You were the first one.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
wow.
Yo, there's one thing I was going to ask a few days ago, but I thought it would be cool to just ask it on the podcast. Might as well, right? Would it be cool to take clips from this podcast and post them on the Exposing Agape channel?
Yes. Go right ahead.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. Because there's so many testimonies on here that just wouldn't work to like transcript onto text. Because all of our posts so far have been like written testimonies from people that they send in or that we found online.
Right.
So it would be really cool to have some like audio visual posts going as well.
Sure, you go right ahead.
That's cool. That'd be way cool, yeah.
Yep.
It's come a long way with everything, but at the same time I feel like, I don't know, not to be discouraged, but I feel like we're barely scratching the surface with all of this, with how many guys have gone through Agape and their stories and it's just wild, man. But it's
well, there have been a few setbacks. We had a couple of guys, and one wanted his podcast down, and others didn't show up. No call, no show, and that's that's understandable. I mean,
Well, and in all honesty, Jason, like I was sitting here like late this morning, like, am I really gonna do this? Like, it's hard. Like, like James, to you and like anyone else that has come on here is thinking about it. Like, it does take bravery to come out and talk about this stuff, but once you do, like, you feel so much better. It's like running the account's a little stressful, just reading stories from people all the time about it, but it really does, I feel like, help in the big picture, just with like your mental health, just being open about what you went through. Like I've talked to former students who are still stuck in this like mindset, like, oh, but they were just trying to help us. They were just trying to help us. It's like, even if they were, those are kids. We were kids, man. Like that's right. That's not how anyone should be raised. Like
100, dude. Like what you said right there too. Like we had a guy commenting about these survivor videos and posting them, and that we should be ashamed for posting them. And the guy was there at the same time I was at Agape, and he had it rough there, man. They were bad to him. And he's like, they were trying to help us, and they saved us. They dealt. I'm like, but granted, yes, did Agape do good? Yeah, but physically abusing children like that, like there's no justification for that. There's no way you can justify that was how they were trying to help us. Maybe the Bible readings and the church services and all that stuff, great, but you can't justify abusing children. I don't care who you are.
What's funny is it's the way it's progressed. Back in my time, Mac, back during the Civil War. Back in '82, of course, this goes back to the late '50s, early '60s with Lester Roloff. It was a paddling, maybe a slap in the face, thrown in a room. Now, I mean, it's progressed. Now you're getting the shit beat out of you. You know what I mean? Is it going to get worse?
Well,
what's next?
One thing I will say, and it's like a lot of the abuse that happens there, if not all of it, I don't think Kathy and James Clemenson are aware of a lot of it. I truly think, from what I've seen, their
Right.
hearts are in the right place, and a lot of it is
They got
maybe not in the right place, but as far as I think they're making a lot of money off the place.
they got video
big
cameras
stake
in
that.
there. They got
Yeah,
video
they're making a
cameras in
lot
there.
of.
They know what's going on.
Yeah.
I think. They're
Yeah,
just,
they're able
I
to
will
see.
say, when I was there and the video camera, the only people that had the app that were signed into it were Julio and Leo.
Oh,
I'm
that
not
could
sure.
be
I'm sure the Clemensons, if they asked, would have had access immediately. But
right.
like, I'm not sure. I don't think they were. When I was there, they weren't really involved with the school at all. They just
it's just kind of weird how the people that actually started this school have no idea what's going on. It just
Mhm.
Well,
it's really hard to
yeah.
believe that.
I do have to say, like, from what I saw there, like, there's when something gets reported, say, to a staff member, there's so many degrees of separation between like that first staff
Yes.
member and it getting to the Clemensons. It goes first to Leo or first to Robert Graves, and then it goes to one of the pastors, and then it goes to the Clemensons. So like, in things that I saw happen there in my time, like, by the time it gets there, there's not real any like, there was a kid who was molested at football camp during my time there, and nothing really came of it. They just pretty much covered the whole thing up. And from what the Clemensons, I don't even know if the information got to them. From what I heard, I never heard
Yeah.
of them having any meeting about it or anything. I'm pretty sure it stopped with the higher ups within the school itself.
Yeah, that makes sense because I remember when I was there, like a fight would break out or a serious restraint. Well, not a fight, but a serious restraint or like a staff getting into it with a kid
Mm-hmm.
in the dining hall. Like I'm not sure if it was the same way we were there, but like there was like a place where Jim Clemenson would sit up on this little balcony and overlook everything, and he wouldn't really interact with anyone. But whenever a staff would start to get into it with a kid, he would get up and leave the room. Like he
Yeah,
never sat there and like looked over like what's happening, what's going on. He never like with a second any kind of like um, altercation was starting to happen, he would literally stand up and walk into his office and shut the door and like just and
that's
I'm like I never understood it. I'm like what? And but
Plausible
now
plausible deniability.
yeah.
yeah
Is-
yeah that's
I just did have a memory of one of the few times we got like a direct like order, a specific order from the Clemensons, and it was like super. I can't remember. It was a weird circumstance where there like wasn't a lot of high up staff on site at the time. I can't remember exactly what was going on, but I was doing an intake at the time, and we got this kid in from Bronx in New York, like super street kid, like, and yeah, had this like if any of you watch basketball, he had this LaMelo Ball like curly blonde hairstyle, African American kid from New York, and just came in like obviously not happy with the place. And when they told him they were gonna cut his hair, he was understandably not having any of it. Like he was not having it at all. So the person that was doing the intake somehow got the question up to James Clemenson before anyone else about how they should handle this kid that doesn't want his haircut. Because Julio, I don't think, was in the building at the time. I think that was the problem. The dean wasn't in the building at the time, so they had to go straight to the top. And the order from Kathy and James was just keep him there in the intake room until he caves in, which is messed up, but more humane than what ended up happening, in my opinion. So they got that order. Just hold him there in the intake room until he is willing to get his haircut and do his intake. And they're gonna like feed him and stuff, of course. They weren't being mean to this kid at this point, I will say. Like they were being pretty reasonable. The same guy that did my intake was doing his intake at this point. So pretty smooth. Julio comes in like a couple hours later after we've just been sitting in the room with this kid waiting for him to cave in to get his haircut. And he hears about that order from James Clemenson and like Kathy Clemenson, and he got so mad about that. I was with him at the time. I was still part of Julio's crew at the time, and I can't remember the exact words, but along the lines of like, we are not doing that. Like that's not how we do things here. Like, and he went down to that room, pushed that kid up against the wall, started yelling at him. The kid pushed back. And keep in mind, Julio's a bodybuilder, like built, has allegedly, by his own word, like multiple black belts and stuff. Yeah, pushes this kid up against the wall, talking about like, who do you think you are? Like, you think you're gonna play tough with me? The kid, who obviously comes from a place where you don't do that to someone without consequences, pushes him back, and Julio just slams this kid harder than like it wasn't restraining this kid wasn't putting Julio in danger. He pushed him. And Julio's a black belt, so he knows how to take someone down to the ground without seriously injuring them. And he just kind of like Devin told that one story about him getting slammed in the hallway where he picked him up by like the lower legs and just over the head, like full like windmill slam. Just slammed this kid so hard. And yeah, staff come running down and just restraining this kid as he's yelling and stuff. And it blew my mind. It was Julio had his knee on this kid's neck, very reminiscent of some of the civil rights stuff going on this year.
Right. Holy crap.
And he's laying there with his knee on this kid's neck praying. And that image sticks with me. He was praying over this kid, like Holy Spirit, calm him, Holy Spirit. Da, 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 da.
Was the kid still fighting?
Yeah, the kid's still fighting and screaming, like, "You hurt me, get off me, da da da." And Julio has his knee on this kid's neck, praying. And I'm like, how can you be praying?
He's exercising the demons.
Yeah, no, literally, that's what he was doing. He had like his hand over the kid's face, like Holy Spirit, da 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 da. No, they didn't calm the kid down. Like, I don't know. I could go on all day, like, about stories I saw there, and like we all saw some messed up stuff there. It's just like I've gotten to the point now where like I've gone over all those memories so much. I'm really asking the whys now. Like, where do these people's minds go to do these things? Like, I just don't understand. Because it's not even. There's so much brutal stuff that goes on like within like the IFB, but so much the culture of Agape seems so singular to Agape. It's like it's a strange place that you can't even really explain it to other people.
Right.
There's all these daily strange traditions and even just like phrases that you remember from your time there that are still a thing. Like when we show up, it's like Brian hadn't been in Agape for how long when I showed up, and Jurassic Elbow was still like a story that we all knew.
Right. Yeah.
We all heard about that. Like,
yeah. And that's the thing too, is like it's people think we're making this stuff up. We're just a bunch of angry kids that are, you know, like didn't do anything with their lives, and we're just trying to like come back and ruin Agape. And but the thing is that like I've talked to people and like staff students and like Brian's. This might actually ruin my relationships with these people. I won't say their names, but like Brian, like one of Brian's kids, like I've been friends with them for many years.
I will say the second generation of that family, Alan and Brian, does seem to be pretty open-minded.
Yeah, as far as I know they lived a very more I'm trying to think like more of a not so of a strict religious.
Yeah, but sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. My bad.
Oh no, you're good. But their kids, like Brian's kids, do not view him. They hear all these stories about their dad and about how he is and how he beats up kids and Jurassic elbows and all the, you know, like from my time, duct taping kids' heads to poles and beating, like literally picking it up and throwing them around. And they are just in disbelief. Like, why are these people saying all these things about my dad? I don't get it. And like they're in complete disbelief that this is their dad and that their dad does these things. So it's almost like I see what you're saying. Like this stuff happens at Agape, right? And it's like in this world, and like trying to explain it to people outside of Agape or the students that went there, and they're just even their own families are in disbelief.
It sounds like a novel. It's so foreign. It's like it's so like I at some level can't even blame some parents for not even at some level. I can't blame most of these parents because when their kids left, a lot of them were like lying and like not obeying the rules, and then they go to this place where they have no contact with their kid and they're just force-fed information about their kid from a staff member. They don't get to see how their kids doing. They only get what Dean tells them. Like, I had a friend named Antonio. I'm sure he doesn't mind. I think he's thinking about hitting up this podcast, actually, Jason.
Okay.
He was doing great. 4 months in, he had done like over half a year of school, had been in a burgundy shirt since like his third week, hadn't gotten a write-up for anything, was doing great. And his parents were thinking about taking him home. And Julio gave him this huge speech about how Antonio's manipulative. And he's sitting there talking to me after, like, bro, have I even like talked to staff at all about much, period? Like, who am I manipulating? What?
Yeah.
Like, it just, and there's so many cases like that from like just my friend group, never mind all the other kids, where it was like, my parents said Julio said this. I don't know where they're getting that. And like looking back, a lot of it wasn't the group that I hung out with wasn't the immature group. Like we stayed out of trouble for the most part. Just like did our school, tried to avoid staff as much as possible. Like just did our own thing. And just looking back, we're like, we honestly had it easier than a lot of students did. The way that we kind of played that system there, we played it really well, our little group that we had. And I feel so bad for some of the kids who like just couldn't do that.
Well, not
Didn't
not
have the
everybody,
ability to.
not everybody has that mindset though. I mean, some kids
Right.
like you go in there. Okay, I'm gonna do the program, keep a low profile, you know.
Mhm.
And there's some kids that got the mindset. Well, you're not going to tell me what to do.
Exactly.
And those
100%.
are the guys. Those are the guys that the staff likes because they
Yeah.
could take their anger out on them.
It seems like one thing that was a huge, like it's been over the years from all the stories that I've heard, but it was huge in my time there was group punishments. Kids barely, unless it was like a fight or like you had contraband or something, kids barely got demoted in my time there. Like it sounds like in the past, like if it was during no talking and someone talked, you might get like demoted or something. No, it was like every single meal during if there was no talking, if there started being talking, exit watchers to the door, we're going to the gym. And we go to the gym and work out. It was super group oriented. And that's like one thing affected, like it took some counseling to get out of my head because I had this thought in my head that like no matter what I do, like I'm gonna get screwed over when I got out of Agape because I was behaving so perfectly at Agape, and every day I was ending up in the gym doing jumping jacks and push-ups and stuff, asking cool staff members like, what did we do? Why are we in here? That one table was being loud, and all of us are in here for 4 hours on a Saturday in a 100-degree gym. And that's just how a lot of the punishments were during my time there, was just straight up group punishments, like across the board, nonstop.
Did they ever tell you who did the infraction?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, they did.
And then those kids would get beat up, when the staff weren't around. And, it was just a circle where like they were really pitting students against each other, pitting the students that wanted to, whether for like their reason, like whether for Baptist reasons or not, were going with the program, pitting those students against the students who weren't going with the program.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
That's I'm interested too. Like, you shared a lot about being there, and now like now that you're kind of talking about a little bit, like now that you're out, you've been out, and like that adjustment to getting out. Like you said, you took some counseling. Like how was life after you left Agape, and even now, like with the after effects and the ripples.
Yeah. So I got home just at first like just happy to be home. That's literally all I cared about. But like I said, even though like I spent like the last few months of my time there not fully buying into a lot of this stuff, I had somewhat bought into it, I would say. Like I didn't want to go to church when I got home because like I just would get it. I went to church once and got an anxiety attack the second I stepped into like the auditorium or whatever it's called. But I was still like open to like a lot of the teachings from there. Like still had them subconsciously in my head, I guess you could say. And it just took a lot of unpackaging through counseling and stuff to get those ideas out of my head. Like, like there isn't this God like that's going to like want to throw me in hell for every single thing that I would do wrong. Like if Christianity is real, like it's a forgiving God that it's like willing to look past my flaws and forgive me and like love me as I am,
Right.
Which is just something they don't touch on at all there. And a lot of other things like that. Just like when I got out, I was like, oh, like I didn't get brainwashed, but I had all these thought processes put in my head that were super damaging. Like, nothing I do ever is going to matter because for the last year I had been behaving perfectly and just losing every like good thing I had, every hour of free time because one other kid was being stupid.
Dang.
But you asked specifically like how I got out and in all honesty dealt with a lot of issues for about like a year. The first year was super hardcore. My parents didn't really, they saw like they would agree with certain little things. Like my dad was like, I had a conversation with my dad where he's like, yeah, I could see like Julio was being manipulative. I wasn't a fan of Julio. Or he like a couple of the sermons he saw during his time there, he was like, that was ridiculous. Burton just said one Bible verse at the start and told stories about himself for the rest of the sermon.
That sounds about right.
The one where he knocked out the guys in Chicago, or he knocked out the guys in Arizona. Anyways, no, so it really, like I said, I don't know, this part's kind of hard to talk about for me because it's like something that I'm still working through, you know? Yeah, just to anyone else who's out there, it's like I've been gone for a few years now, but I haven't figured it all out, like where my head is at and stuff. But I will say I was super depressed, just had these thoughts and like memories going through my head, and I was just so angry that like this stuff happened to me for over a year afterwards, until I really started going to counseling and stuff and just able to move past that. So like anyone who's watching this who like went through like similar experiences at like Agape or any of the other schools, like please, like it took like a step down in pride for me to do it. Like I don't like talking to people about my problems and like admitting like I need help. So I was super reluctant to go to counseling. But anyone who's watching this, like I don't care if who you are, like what you're doing with your life right now, like that shit can help you so much. Like counseling and unpacking some of that trauma really helps you. And I'm still working on myself. I still have a long way to go, but I've moved past the anger stage of being at Agape for sure. And I'm just looking back, like,
and you're
more sad.
Yeah. And you're talking about a real counselor.
Yeah, for sure.
Not some stupid Christian counselor who's just gonna beat more religion into your head.
Yeah.
You know. So
please go to counseling. Anyone who's watching this, if you need it, like it helps so much.
Yeah. Don't be ashamed to do it. You know.
Oh, absolutely.
That's one of the things. Yeah. A lot of people are embarrassed, or they feel humiliated. Mm-hmm. You know, or is someone going to find out? And anxiety, happens. So yeah. But they need to know that. Well, they need to know that they're not alone. You know what I mean? There are a lot of people that have gone through this that are getting the help they need. So,
for sure, and it's like I said, I've reached out to like students that I went to Agape with that are, some of them are like still like doing street stuff, like out there like selling drugs and stuff. I was friends with them at Agape. I'm not living that way anymore, but I'll hit him up just like, oh, how's it going? And I'll be like, oh, I'm just working, da da da. And he's like, oh, I'm like moving blank blank blank. But when you start talking to them, it's like these guys that are like living like on their Instagram, like super tough and like living these street lives, they're just as traumatized as we are. It's like, I don't care how manly you are and like how like tough you are, or what you got, like what you're doing with your life. Like we all went through some trauma there, and like we need to unpack a lot. And I've had some good talks with people where they've like realized some stuff. Like,
and everybody deals with it in their own way.
For sure.
There's no cookie cutter program. You know what I mean? It's everybody deals with it differently. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And well, and on a thing on that too, if you think, just a thought, like at Agape, you can't be vulnerable. You can't go to a staff member and say, "Hey, man, I'm really struggling with this right now." There's no support system at Agape whatsoever when you're there. You can't, right? You can't be. You come up, you're crying because you miss your mom or something or whatever. Like something happens, like you're getting punished, restrained, beat up. Like you're like, so you don't have that there. So you get that in your mind that you can't be weak. I can't be vulnerable with people. I can't open up to people. And you get out in the real world and you're like, man, I'm dealing with all this shit. What do I do? I can't open up. I can't talk to people. I can't, and you're just programmed that way. And it takes so much to even come on a podcast and share that. Like even when I did my podcast, talking about what happened to Agape was fine, but I wanted so bad to frame myself that I'm like perfect now, that things are great and I have no issues now, and that I didn't talk about my years of drug use when I got out of Agape or any of that stuff, because I didn't want anyone to think about any of my problems that I had, and I didn't want to talk about those. Like it just fucks you up.
For sure. And I just want to say, like, again, like I don't have, like, I'm still working through all of this. Like I'm still only a few years away, right. So like I'm not sitting here like I know like the answer to like how to like get past that trauma and stuff. I'm still working through it myself, but just being open to getting real help and realizing that like there's people out there that actually want to help you. Like Agape, not every authority and every like system that's there to like help us out there is like the people at Agape. Like I went into
Right.
I went into therapy and counseling like worried about like what questions they're gonna ask and stuff. And it was the most like therapeutic, calming thing I ever did once I got into it. But going in, I was worried what questions these people were gonna ask, because it just, in my time at Agape, like I came in as like an adopted kid with some family problems and a serious drug problem, and I never once had the chance to even mention one of those three things to a staff member. It's like I never talked about my drug problem at Agape.
Right.
I just had to figure out myself. Like,
Yeah.
just never got talked to by anyone.
Yeah. That's such a crazy idea. Just that alone, like, parents think about sending their kids to the school to deal with these problems. Then you're at the school and you can't even talk about these things, or even confront these things because you can't talk about them, or you just get made fun of for it, right? About being a crackhead, but that's the extent of their therapy.
Yeah.
100%.
Just pray to Jesus. It'll all be fine.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mac,
Yeah.
thank you for coming on the podcast. Appreciate it. James,
Yeah, for
you as
sure.
well, man. Thank you.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. It's good talking with you, man. This is,
Yeah.
I'm eager to see, like, watch your, exposing Agape, like, watch that grow, and also
Yes.
this too. Hopefully more kids, because I've heard some guys tell me they don't want to go on the podcast because they heard my story, some other guy's story. It's like, oh, we didn't have it as bad as you, so I don't think I should share my story, because it's not as bad. Like, why is it, I don't think I need to share it, but yours didn't sound as bad physically as some other people's, but still, this was solid thing to hear.
I've always said, even if you have good stories, come on,
Yeah, right.
I tell that to a lot of people. Even if it's a good story, if you had no problem with Agape, come on in. But nobody seems to want to do it.
Like there is like one thing we can't pretend is there wasn't like not even just good memories with like other students there, but like there definitely was staff there with good intentions trying to help us that just have
Your mic is weird, Mac.
Oh, sorry.
Your mic got weird. I don't know what
your mic
happened.
got weird.
You good now?
No.
You hear me? One sec.
There you go.
Now?
Yeah, that's better.
A little bit better. Yeah.
So yeah. I don't remember what I was just saying.
You're saying that there were staff with good intentions that were trying to help.
It's just like some of them have just grown up in that IFB where it's like if the pastor says something's okay, it must be okay. So like this kid's getting slammed. If Pastor Burton says it's okay, like
right,
how morally they're in the state where they can't disagree with that. It's like that is my man of God. He speaks the word of God, so it must be okay. It's like some of these staff I can't even blame them. It's like it's this IFB cult-like structure that's just been built up over decades.
Yeah,
it's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let me go ahead and end the podcast, and then you guys stay on for a few minutes. One thing I have to say though, you were when you were talking about the how Brian put somebody put the chef and the pictures of his food online or something. Why didn't they put a picture of a pitiful peanut butter sandwich that the guys in Browntown have to eat?
Yeah, why isn't that the second slide at least?
Yeah, right. Yeah. This is what we're going to feed your kid when he first gets here, or something like that.
Like you said, James, it's all about marketing. It's all about marketing.
It really is. Yep. It really is.
Yep. Okay. So, thanks, Mac, for coming on. James as well. And for the people who the first time watching these podcasts, please subscribe to the channel. Like I said, the channel is growing, and the people who have already subscribed, thank you very much. It's very appreciated. And there's more coming. So for the Hammer Podcast, I'm Jason. You take care of yourself, and you take care of each other. All right. Huh? Yeah.
That was good ending.
Yeah.